Greetings and welcome to the Cancer Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Morton. You know, some of our episodes have featured guests who not only survived cancer, but felt the need to engage in a no-nonsense effort to assist others with their respective cancer journeys. Our guest on this episode is one of those cancer warriors. She is Heidi Slansky of Keller, Texas. She's the founder of Cancer Strong Her. We're going to hear all about that, and we're going to hear Heidi's story. So Heidi, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Thank you, Bruce. Nice to be here.
We always like to start off from the same place, and that is to learn a little bit about you, exclusive of your involvement with cancer. So if you would tell us a bit about where you're from and, when time allows for fun, what you like to do.
All right. Well, I do like fun. We could spend an hour just on that. So I currently reside in Keller, Texas. We've been here for 6 years now. I have 3 active teenagers in the house. My husband is ringmaster of all, I suppose. And we are just doing our best to live our best life every single day. When I'm not running my nonprofit, Cancer Strong Her, I spend tons of time on the tennis court. And that's my happy place.
Now, in addition to running Cancer Strong Her, you too are a cancer survivor. If you would, describe your health prior to your breast cancer diagnosis.
Okay. I was diagnosed in 2013, and at the time, at the age of 40, 41, I was in the best shape of my entire life. I was just super active, a fitness fanatic, doing everything that I enjoyed doing. And so I went into my cancer diagnosis in just the best possible shape.
Did there had to be some instance, some juncture in which you or a doctor noticed something was abnormal? Describe that, if you would.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, cancer wasn't even on my radar at the time. And it's the reason being, I was still young, I was healthy, not a huge history in the family. However, I did have an aunt on my father's side who passed away at the age of 41 from breast cancer. And, you know, at the time that would have been in the 70s, and nobody really talked a lot about it. In fact, I was much, much older when I actually realized that it was breast cancer that she had succumbed to. I just remember her visiting her. She wore a turban, which as a small child, I thought that was very unusual. It's not something you saw very often. But that was really my only experience with cancer. But because we had that one person in our family history, my doctors had the foresight of starting my mammograms at the age of 38. And to be honest, I had no idea that I had a cancer growing inside of me. It was, if I had not been for those annual mammograms, I would have had no idea at all. That's how I found my breast cancer at the age of 41 in 2013. And at the time of diagnosis, I was stage 3, and it had already metastasized into my lymph nodes.
Heidi, there's no such thing as a good time to find out that you have cancer, but in your case, did it somewhat soften the blow that you knew that there was family history and you knew that there was that possibility?
I don't know about softening the blow. You know, that's a tough one to take when you are that young. I had 3, my kids were the ages 5, 7, and 9 at the time. So really the thought wasn't about me. It was what happens to my kids if this completely gets out of hand, which, you know, we weren't starting from an early stage cancer. It was already advanced stage, which is extremely scary, especially when you're taking a young family along for the ride. So yes, I know when you are diagnosed, you naturally want to find a reason why, you know, why does this happen? And for me, you know, no one in our family had ever heard of genetic testing or tried to, you know, go through that process of genetic testing. So that was one of the first things that I did after diagnosis. And, you know, it turns out that my family has a mutation of the CHEK2 gene. It's a very nasty mutation because it's not just a culprit in breast cancer. It's a culprit in so many other cancers: thyroid cancer, bladder cancer, ovarian cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer. And actually, my father succumbed to 2 of those cancers and passed away about 2.5 years ago from kidney cancer. And it was all related to this one genetic mutation, same genetic mutation his sister had, who succumbed to breast cancer at an early age. And I know that genetic testing can be can be a scary process for a lot of people. But for me, having that knowledge is power. Had I known that was even on the, a culprit, or could have been a culprit in my health, I would have probably paid attention to some of the signs a little earlier that were there. I just was too busy to take notice. We probably could have caught this at an earlier stage, perhaps. My cancer in particular exploded very quickly. And, but even if I would have caught it a month earlier, we would have been in much better shape.
Stage 3, did you have much in terms of treatment options, or was it pretty much decided by your care team and by you there was only one way to go in terms of treatment?
Pretty much at that stage, they throw the book at you, and I'm very, very thankful they did. I did the most of everything I possibly could. So chemotherapy, Carboplatin, Taxotere, Perjeta, and Herceptin over the course of a year. I did double mastectomy with reconstructions. That's a whole different story. That lasted for years and years, and also radiation therapy.
What was the toughest part of your chemo experience? And I expect there would be a number of things that would be vying for number one there, but what was the toughest part of your chemo experience?
Chemotherapy was my first line of treatment. And I told you I was already in pretty great shape going into that. The chemotherapy was tough. I mean, there's just no way around that. It's tough. And as you progress, it gets tougher. So I would say I went through 6 treatments. Those last 2 treatments were pretty rough, but I had 3 small kids at home, and I just kept going every single day. We were living in Kentucky at the time, northern Kentucky. We had no friends or family, had just moved there. And so, my husband wasn't available to take me to all my treatments. And I had to, suck it up and get myself there to all those treatments. He participated when he could. I met some wonderful friends because of the cancer that I had. So my kids' teachers are really the ones who rallied around me, offered help, offered food, and really became my support group and my friend group. I mean, we're still wonderful friends to this day, but it took really having that cancer to find those people in my community that with the biggest most open hearts.
You might not have had to wear a turban, but did you suffer hair loss to any extent?
Oh, absolutely. I went bald. Yeah. I tried wigs. It just wasn't me. I tried to just rock the bald, to be honest. Now, when I was bald, it was the coldest winter in the history of northern Kentucky. So I did wear a lot of hats that especially that winter into the spring. It was cold. It was beyond cold. So a lot of hats. I still went up to my kids' school all the time, went to have lunch with them, and the community knew that I was sick. I was bald. Chemotherapy and the surgeries and the radiation, you don't look well by the time you've gone through that. But that community in particular was just so open, and they were okay with me showing up like that. And I tried to make it not scary for the other kids. But it is a part of life, and for my kids especially, to see that I was still okay and still able to get there to be with them was a big deal. One of the things, especially when I started losing my hair, there's just no way around hiding that with your kids. And that's when they really start getting scared. And I would always tell them, it's okay. Mom has more strength to spare. I mean, I've got strength for all of us. So that was always kind of our thing. And, being strong and having extra strength was always the way that we talked about getting through this. And luckily I was able to maintain that. It's tough though. It's tough when you are in such a state of how do you say it? The opposite of well-being. You are in such a state of sickness, and you are trying to stay as strong as you possibly can for the sake of your family, for yourself. And I was just glad that I was able to kind of maintain that positivity throughout.
Raising 3 kids is no small chore all by itself under the best of circumstances, but
Right.
a well-known side effect of chemo is fatigue, sometimes extreme fatigue. How are you able to keep those 2 balls in the air of dealing with the fatigue and raising 3 kids?
Mm-hmm. When I had the opportunity, I would, take a nap, take a nap and get back to it. My youngest son was in kindergarten that year, and they only had a half-day kindergarten. And I just remember trying to work that half day I had to try to rest up as I could and be ready for when all the kids came home, or their activities and whatever it was that day, just to be prepared for it. So absolutely, try to get the rest when the opportunity arose.
Yeah,
it's a tough balance.
I don't doubt it. As a non-parent, I cannot imagine. I can only try to imagine. Heidi, there came a point in which you started to get the upper hand on breast cancer. Could you describe what that was like? What events took place, and how you felt once it appeared that you were on your way to survivorship?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was, I had been through the worst of it, 2013 into the beginning of 2014. I had my surgery, spring of 2014, then followed by radiation. I was able to kind of take some time during that summer to kind of get away on our family ranch in Texas and just do some healing. That was a big deal, because up until that point, it was just trying to make it through every single day and do the best, live the best life we could amongst all of the chaos. But it was really that summer of 2014 that I was able to finally get a little rest and recuperation. And then when we got back to Kentucky that fall, I told you about my support group. We, I don't know, they just continued to rally around me. We had done one of those breast cancer 5K walks, and we all got into one of those goofy photo booths and, put on all the different pink paraphernalia. I put on a pair of boxing gloves for the first time in my life. I had never hit anything. I never boxed before, but I put those pink boxing gloves on, and I felt completely empowered. I knew there was something to that feeling, because during treatment, we talk about fighting the cancer. That's kind of how we refer to our interaction with the cancer. We're fighting cancer. But upon reflection, I really didn't feel like I got to physically or like tangibly fight anything. I felt like I spent countless hours in the hospital, in doctor's offices, in waiting rooms, and infusion rooms. And, it was really the doctors and the nurses doing the bulk of the actual, fighting and physical work, where I just kind of sat there and took it. And then, my fight started afterwards at home, just trying to stay healthy. But to have, put those boxing gloves on, feel a tangible fight, I knew there was something to that feeling of empowerment. I knew that was something a feeling that other cancer survivors were probably longing for. And that was really where the seed of the nonprofit that I started, Cancer Stronger, began.
By the way, if you like what you hear on this segment, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast by checking the links below. Once there, you'll see a bell icon, and if you click on that, we will notify you when we post a new interview. Getting back to your cancer journey, Heidi, I ask this question often of people who undergo chemotherapy, and believe it or not, I get the same answer every time. So I'm going to throw this question out at you.
All right.
You underwent chemotherapy. It's arduous in so many ways, but now that it's in your rearview mirror, are you glad that chemotherapy was part of your cancer fight?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would have done anything. I would have tried anything to stay there for my kids and my family. Mm-hmm.
You also went on a journey with skin cancer, and I want to talk about that as well. Many times skin cancer can victimize people who spend a lot of time in the sun. You like playing tennis. A lot of times that's out in the sun. If you would talk to us about what led to your skin cancer journey.
Well, I'm a child of the 80s. I mean, we would slather down in baby oil and go sit out in the sun for hours on end. We just didn't know any better. So I'm sure years and years of sun exposure. I love the outdoors. I mean, if I don't have that sunshine and the vitamin D, I just don't function the way I like to. Of course, in my later years, I used lots of sunblock and that type of thing. But by then, the damage was done. And, I had a few suspicious areas here and there among the years. But this was, a couple years ago, I went in for my annual check. Actually, now I do it twice a year, a skin check, and they found a spot on my face right here. And, it was cancerous. It was basal cell. Thank goodness. That's very easy to treat. But they cut a large part of, right across my eye and across my face. And I have quite a scar there. So it's just a very, very visual forward type of cancer to have. I know a lot of people that play tennis that we have to be extra diligent because there's so many people that play tennis that have had, not only basal cell carcinomas, but melanomas and, some of the things that are not as easily treatable and more spreadable. So diligence is a key. Keep up with that sunscreen.
Beyond sunscreen, do you have any advice for those who like to spend a lot of time in the sun?
Try to avoid those mid hours. I know I'm one of those people, I have to have some sunshine, but I do try to get out there in the mornings and the evenings and leave the midday to itself.
So
wear lots of hats.
Yes. So you had a journey with breast cancer, a briefer journey, but a journey nonetheless with skin cancer. From that experience, and you've already tipped us off a little bit because of the presence of the boxing gloves, which were present in your past and in your present and future. But if you would, Heidi, talk to us about what part of your cancer journeys inspired you to found Cancer Strong Her.
All right. Well, I told you a little bit about the seed that was placed back in 2014, late 2014. Well, as luck would have it, I suppose it was luck. I hated leaving all my great friends there in Northern Kentucky, but my husband got a job back in Texas. We moved to the Fort Worth area in 2016. And, I had to find a whole new crew of doctors for all of the different things that I'm seen for. Because of that CHEK2 genetic mutation, I see a lot of different doctors, and they keep, they screen for many, many different cancers all the time. So once I settled into that, found my team again, and I knew that I wanted to do more. There's a gap in treatment. So you're done with treatment. There are some systems, some hospital systems that will help you physically try to get back on your feet, but there's a gap there. You're just kind of let out into the void oftentimes after treatment with a body that is nothing like you started with before diagnosis. I will never be that same person. I will never have that particular level of fitness, but I wanted to try. I wanted to try to get back to some sense of well-being, some type of control of my own, my own physical destiny. And I knew that there's it was missing. What type of program is there for someone who's been through the rigors of treatment that wants to get not only just back on their feet, but better, and become the best person that they can physically, mentally, that feeling of strength. And so, I knew about, so the boxing was I told you about the boxing gloves and how good that felt, but I had never boxed. As luck would have it, my neighbor, who was a former FBI agent, happened to also teach boxing when she was with the FBI. And I told her a little bit about my story and, how I would love to bring some type of tangible fight or, to cancer survivors or people who are going through treatment. And she said, well, you know what, why don't you and your daughters come over and I'll teach you a little bit about boxing. So of course, there I was. And I absolutely loved that tangible fight. I loved that feeling. And so I started bouncing ideas off. Her name is Stacy Mitry. And she kind of was my right hand on starting this organization. She's the one that I went to with my ideas. She was kind of my editor on, once I created a business plan, what this would look like, what does it take to even start a nonprofit? And because she had the background in not only boxing training, but just group exercise, that type of thing. That's part of what she does, and empowering women. It was just the perfect partnership at the perfect time. So, we had this great plan. I had my whole plan worked out. I had nowhere to take it. Where do you go find a boxing gym that is going to work with a brand new nonprofit who has, almost $0 in the bank? And it just so happens that there was a female-only boxing studio that opened in Grapevine, Texas. The owner's name is Madeline Rickey, and she opened this amazing studio called The Hook Boxing Studio. And as soon as that cropped up at just the right time on our Facebook feeds, Stacy and I immediately got in touch with her and just kind of told her a little bit about the nonprofit we were trying to start. And Madeline was all in from the beginning. She had lost her mother to cancer, and her heart was there in the right place. And she was willing to bear with us while we got started as a nonprofit. And so we became a 501c3 in April of 2018. We held our first boxing class in May of 2018. That was our very first fitness program. And for me, it was important that all of our programs are completely free for female cancer survivors. The organizations that I'd kind of been involved with, some of them are national organizations. Every time I wanted to get involved, I had to pay to participate. And that was okay for a while, but then, I got to think, this is really, that's not how I want to run my organization. Everything I do is here to support the survivors, and I need everything nothing needs to be out of pocket. I just really want to take really good care of our survivors. So, we started with that boxing program, and then later that year we started a yoga program with a partnership with UT Southwestern, the Moncrief Cancer Center there in Fort Worth. They were willing to, let us come in and kind of talk about what would this program look like. And then so happens that one of their trainers became available to work with us. So, we would pay the trainer, and we would provide these wonderful yoga classes with someone who had worked with nothing but cancer patients and survivors for a decade. So wonderful restorative yoga program. And then we added a Taekwondo program, again, getting back to that kind of bringing the fight, empowerment type of feeling. We realized we need a little balance, so we added a Pilates class in 2020, and then a fabulous tennis program with a local facility. It's an amazing facility called the Birch Racket and Lawn Club. and they opened their hearts to us as well. So we got one class in with them, and then COVID hit. And I don't know if you want me to take a break and talk about something else at this point, but that was, for everyone, that was a huge, not really a tipping point, but we had to change. We had to shift what we were doing.
If you would, Heidi, talk to us about the way that slipping on the boxing gloves has not only empowered you, but empowered the people who participate in Cancer Strong Her.
Well, that fitness boxing class, that's our signature class. And I still, gosh, if you would just see the smiles on the faces of the survivors when they're done with that class. It's, hitting things is not something that we typically, try to promote as a society. But, I told you about that. We always talk about fighting cancer, but there is no tangible fight. And when you see women be able to just work out some of that, frustration that they have, or some of that anger that they might have, and then just be able to smile and have the camaraderie with their fellow survivors, it's pretty special.
Our guest is Heidi Slansky of Keller, Texas. She's the founder of Cancer Strong Her. And before we go any farther, Heidi, if you would, let us know just what is the web address. If somebody wants to go to your website and find out more about Cancer Strong Her, where would they go?
Sure, they can go to cancerstrongher.org, and that's Cancer Strong with an H-E-R on the end. So STRONGHER.org. Now,
I know that you service the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but with a website, are there ways that people who live outside of the Metroplex can access your website, and there are things they can learn that can help in their cancer journey?
Certainly. And this is a great segue to where we left off talking about COVID. So when COVID shut down all of the in-person training that we were doing, we did shift, and we were able to record a library of classes, yoga classes, fitness boxing classes, and they're all available on our website for anyone to access.
And that web address one more time?
It's cancerstrongher.org.
Now we're going to wrap up, Heidi, but this is kind of a big subject I want you to address as we wrap up. And that's the whole notion of support groups, because a support group can be of help to somebody with kind of a high profile cancer, or a support group can be a help of, it can be of assistance to somebody with a rare cancer that doesn't have quite the same resources. But if you had a face-to-face audience with somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, male or female, young or old, and you wanted to extol the virtues of a support group and what it can do for that person, what would you tell them?
There are a lot of different types of support groups out there. There are, and they're not all right for, each person. So for me, I did attend a lot of, sit in a circle type of support groups and talk about what's going on. But for me, that wasn't, and that still to this day is not what I in particular needed. I'm the type of person, a little less talk, a lot more action. So for me, an active support group is what I needed, and why I formed Cancer Strong Her. So that's part of our mission, is build that community and support for each other, and do it actively. Study after study after study shows that physical activity can help reduce recurrence rates, and that's our overarching goal with Cancer Strong Her, is let's cut those recurrence rates. But this is a totally different type of support group. We're not right for everybody. Not everybody wants to go out and box or do Pilates or yoga or tennis fit camp, whatever, row house. We have so many different programs, and that may not be right for you. You might want a different type of support group, but try them out. They're at your local hospitals. They're at your local churches. There's so many nonprofits that offer these type of services. We're lucky in the DFW area to have a lot of options and a lot of different types of support groups, but find the one that's right for you.
Fabulous. Heidi, thanks so much for your time and the sharing of your story, your past, and your present and future with Cancer Strong Her, as it has a lot to offer people. And while you can only partake of Cancer Strong Her in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there are still pearls of information that you can get from the Cancer Strong Her website. So Heidi Slansky, thanks again. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for sharing with us.
All right. Thanks so much, Bruce.
And that'll wrap up this episode of Cancer Interviews. We want to remind you that if you are on a cancer journey or you know someone who is, you are not alone. There are people like Heidi out there. There are organizations like Cancer Strong Her that can do their part to help you on your way on your cancer journey. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information, please visit us online at cancerinterviews.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you back here again next time on the Cancer Interviews Podcast.